Let me ask you a direct question, and I want you to answer honestly, even if it's just to yourself. Have you ever woken up on an ordinary day, gone to the bathroom, looked in the mirror, and felt that something had changed? It wasn't something you could put into words at the time. It was more of a feeling, a different energy, a body that doesn't seem to respond the way you tell it to anymore. Perhaps the morning erections that used to be so common have vanished without warning. Maybe you notice that you get tired faster, that your daily drive has shortened, that the desire for intimacy is still there, but your body just can't seem to keep up. And then that silent question arises, one that many men are even ashamed to formulate. Is this normal? Is it just age? Or is there something wrong with me? If you identified with any of these situations, I want you to know that you are not alone. And more importantly, you don't have to simply accept this as your fate. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I am a men's health specialist. And over more than 2 decades of caring for men in their 50s and 60s, one thing has become very clear to me. Most of the problems these men face have a common root that almost no one talks about. Today, in this video, I'm going to tell you what that root is, why it deeply affects performance, energy, and male sexual health, and what real men over 60 are doing differently to naturally reverse this situation. So stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share here could change the way you care for your own body. There is an oil that first caught my attention about 8 years ago when I started seeing consistent research about it emerging in vascular health publications. It wasn't just any oil from a supermarket shelf. It was a compound extracted from specific seeds and plants with a biochemical profile that, at the time, surprised me. And what surprised me even more was when I started recommending it to some patients as part of a broader protocol and began receiving their feedback. Men aged 60, 65, 68 years old telling me they were sleeping better, their fatigue had decreased, and their intimate life had returned in a way they no longer expected. I'm going to tell you everything about this oil in this video, where it comes from, how it acts on the body, and why it makes so much sense from a physiological standpoint. But first, I need to explain what is actually happening in your organism, because without understanding the root cause, any solution will feel like a shot in the dark. When a man is over 55 or 60 and starts noticing a drop in sexual performance, energy, and overall drive, there is a common denominator in most cases I treat. Blood circulation is compromised. It sounds too simple, I know, but that's exactly it. Blood is what carries oxygen, nutrients, and hormones to every cell in the body. When circulation works well, the heart pumps efficiently, vessels are flexible, and blood reaches everywhere it needs to go, including the tissues responsible for an erection. But as the years go by, especially in men living with chronic stress, heavy diets, sedentary lifestyles, or a history of high blood pressure and high cholesterol, the walls of the blood vessels suffer. They lose elasticity, they accumulate plaque, they become rigid, and blood flow begins to decrease gradually, silently, almost imperceptibly at first. And here is the point that no one explains properly. An erection is, above all, a vascular event. It depends directly on blood arriving in sufficient quantity and with adequate pressure to the erectile tissue. When circulation is compromised, so is the erection. Not because the man doesn't want it, not because the relationship is bad, not because he got too old, but because the blood flow simply isn't arriving the way it needs to. And beyond the erection, this same compromised circulation affects testosterone production, which depends on a good blood supply to the testicles. It affects energy because muscle tissues and the brain don't receive enough oxygen. It affects mood, sleep, and mental clarity. Everything is connected by this same thread. I remember a patient, I'll call him Roberto, 63 years old, married for 35 years, retired. He came to my office referred by a cardiologist who had noticed some signs of compromised circulation in routine exams. Roberto didn't want to be there. He came because his wife insisted. During our conversation, with much effort, he began telling me his story, that erections had become weaker over the last 2 years, that sometimes they failed completely, that he had started avoiding intimacy with his wife to avoid the embarrassment, that he slept poorly, got tired quickly, and felt his legs were heavy at the end of the day, that he had lost interest in things he used to love, like weekend fishing or playing pool with friends. I looked at him and said, "Roberto, you aren't broken. Your body is calling for help in a way you haven't learned to interpret yet. Let's listen to what it's saying together." And that's exactly what we did. What I found in Roberto's exams was no surprise to me, but it always has an impact when you see it in a real human being. Compromised peripheral circulation, testosterone at the lower limit of normal for his age, moderate systemic inflammation, and a very fragmented sleep pattern. We started a protocol that included daily walks, dietary adjustments, simple stress management techniques, careful hydration, and the oil I mentioned earlier as a central part of the plan. 2 months later, Roberto returned, and he was different. Not just physically, his posture was different, the look in his eyes was different. He told me, "Doctor, I feel like myself again. It wasn't magic, it was a process, it was consistency, but it was real." Now I'm going to explain why this oil works from a scientific standpoint, because I never recommend anything I can't explain. There is a molecule called nitric oxide that your body produces naturally, which acts as a chemical messenger with a very specific function to relax the blood vessels. When vessels relax, they dilate and blood flow increases. This process is fundamental for an erection, but also for general circulation, blood pressure, and muscle and brain oxygenation. The problem is that nitric oxide production naturally drops with age. Studies show that men over 60 produce significantly less nitric oxide than when they were in their 30s or 40s. And that explains a lot. Getting tired more easily, heavier legs, less frequent and less firm erections, and blood pressure that tends to rise. It's a silent cycle that worsens without us noticing. The oil I've been following closely in research is extracted from pomegranate, and what makes it special is the concentration of polyphenols and ellagic acid it carries. These compounds have a demonstrated ability in clinical studies to stimulate the enzymes responsible for producing nitric oxide in the body. In practice, what happens is that the body begins to produce more of this vasodilating molecule. The vessels relax more efficiently, and blood flow improves, including in the pelvic region, which is exactly where an erection needs blood to flow. And what makes this even more interesting is that this mechanism is the same one that medications like sildenafil try to enhance through a pharmacological pathway. The difference is that here we are talking about a natural pathway, without the adverse effects of drugs, without the need for a prescription, and without the dependency on a pill before every moment. But pomegranate isn't the only oil in this equation. Pumpkin seed oil is another one I follow closely for a specific reason. It is extraordinarily rich in zinc and essential fatty acids that directly support testosterone production. Zinc is a mineral that most men over 60 are deficient in without knowing it, because the body doesn't store zinc efficiently and the modern diet rarely supplies enough. When zinc levels drop, testosterone drops with it. And when testosterone drops, libido decreases, energy falls, mood worsens, and erectile function suffers. Furthermore, specific studies show that pumpkin seed oil has a direct action on the prostate, reducing inflammation and supporting prostate tissue health, which relieves symptoms like frequent nighttime wake-ups and difficulty emptying the bladder completely. And then there is black sesame oil, which carries compounds called sesaminol and sesamin with potent anti-inflammatory action in the blood vessels. Remember I mentioned vascular inflammation? These compounds act right there, helping to preserve vessel elasticity and improve circulation consistently over time. When you combine these three oils in a quality supplement with the right proportions and without additives that compromise absorption, you create an internal environment in the body that favors circulation, hormonal production, and erectile function in an integrated way. It's not an isolated effect, it's a set of mechanisms acting in synergy toward the same goal, giving your body back its ability to function well. Now, I need to be honest about the silent enemies working against your circulation every day because knowing them is fundamental to understanding why the oil support makes sense within a broader context. The first is a sedentary lifestyle. The human body was made to move, and when we stay still for long periods, peripheral circulation slows down, vessels become less stimulated, and the heart has to work harder to compensate. The second is an inflammatory diet, fried foods, processed meats, excess sugar, and refined flours. These foods create direct inflammation in the blood vessels, and inflamed vessels are vessels that don't function well. The third is chronic stress, which releases excess cortisol, causes vessel constriction, decreases testosterone production, and creates a self-reinforcing cycle. The fourth is poor quality sleep, as testosterone is produced mainly during deep sleep. And the fifth, which many people underestimate, is chronic dehydration. Most men over 60 simply don't drink enough water, and blood concentrated due to lack of hydration flows with much more difficulty through the vessels. When all these factors are present at the same time, which is the case for most men who come to me, the body enters a state I call silent circulatory overload. Nothing is acutely broken. There is no single event that explains what is happening. It is a gradual, slow degradation that robs energy, vitality, and performance without the man realizing it until the consequences are already established. And it is exactly at this point that the protocol I've developed over the years makes a difference because it attacks this overload on multiple fronts at the same time. There is an aspect of prostate health that is directly connected to everything we are talking about and needs to be mentioned. The prostate is located in a very vascularized region of the body, irrigated by a network of vessels that also supply the genital organs. When circulation in this region is compromised, the prostate suffers along with it. It becomes more prone to inflammation, overgrowth, and symptoms that many men end up normalizing. Difficulty urinating, a feeling of incomplete emptying, and frequent trips to the bathroom at night. So, what's interesting to realize is that when you start taking care of pelvic circulation as a whole, you are automatically taking care of the prostate as well. These are not two separate fronts. They are two aspects of the same underlying problem, which is compromised regional circulation. And this explains why so many of my patients who started the protocol focusing on erection and performance reported unexpected improvement in prostate symptoms throughout the process. Another patient who left a mark on me was Marcos, 67 years old, a retired engineer. He came to the office with a specific complaint. He was getting up 3 or 4 times a night to urinate, and it was destroying his and his wife's sleep. But during the conversation, the rest of the story emerged. Erections that vanished before completing the act, a feeling of emptiness during the day, that fatigue that didn't go away even with rest. Marcos had a very deep-seated belief that at 67 this was just how it was, that it was natural, that there was nothing more to expect. I did the same work with him that I do with everyone. I educated him about his own body, I showed him the exams, I explained what was happening. I literally drew on a piece of paper what happens to vessels with age and why pelvic circulation was compromised. And when he understood, something shifted in his posture. He was quiet for a moment and said, "So, it's reversible?" I said, "Not always completely, but there is always improvement possible, and real improvement." 6 months later, Marcos called me. He was getting up once a night at worst. He was sleeping better. His wife was happier, and he, with a pride I rarely see in the office, told me his intimate life had returned. Not in the same way as when he was 40, but in a way that satisfied both of them, that created connection, and that brought joy. Do you know what strikes me about my work? The silence. Men arrive at the office, sit in the chair, and stay silent for a while before they start talking. It's not shyness, it's shame. It's that feeling that admitting something isn't working well is admitting a weakness. And this silence carries a very high price because while the man stays quiet, the problem advances. What could have been treated simply becomes something increasingly complex, affecting not only physical health but also self esteem, relationships, and overall quality of life. I've seen men arrive at the office completely different from who they were: quiet, distant from their wives, avoiding intimate situations because the anxiety was too great. Men who stopped traveling, stopped enjoying life because they felt their bodies had broken and there was nothing left to do. And the vast majority shared a common belief. They thought it was just age, that it was natural, that there was no solution. And I'll tell you something I tell all of them: aging is natural. Completely losing function, energy, and quality of life doesn't have to be. There is a statistic that impacts me every time I mention it. Most men wait an average of 7 years between noticing a health problem and seeking medical help. 7 years? 7 years of deterioration that could have been avoided or reversed with proper care. And this delay has reasons I understand: the culture that a strong man doesn't complain, the fear of diagnosis, the shame of talking about sexual health, the normalization of symptoms. But it has a price. And part of my work, both in the office and here on this channel, is to create the space that was missing. A place where you can hear about your own body without judgment, without embarrassment, and with quality information that helps you make better decisions about your health. Before talking about the full protocol, I need to make an important pause. There are signs that need immediate medical evaluation, and I cannot fail to mention this. If you are having difficulty with erections accompanied by chest pain, shortness of breath, tingling in the left arm, or dizziness, seek emergency care. These could be signs of a serious heart problem. If you notice blood in your urine or semen, persistent pelvic pain, or very intense difficulty urinating, see a urologist. If your blood pressure is constantly high and is not being treated, that needs to be the first step before anything else. Uncontrolled hypertension is one of the main causes of erectile dysfunction and severe circulatory compromise. I say this because I genuinely care about every man who watches this channel. And truly taking care of health means knowing the difference between what can be treated with habits and natural supplementation and what needs medical intervention. Now let's talk about practical solutions. Things you can start doing today that will create a real difference in your circulation, your energy, and your performance. The first is daily movement, and it doesn't have to be the gym. A 20 to 30-minute walk a day is already enough to significantly stimulate circulation. Some of my patients started walking 10 minutes a day and gradually increased. The body responds. Additionally, male Kegel exercises, which are contractions and relaxations of the pelvic floor, have shown impressive results in improving erectile function in men over 50. They are discreet, can be done anywhere, and strengthen the muscles that support an erection. The second is making hydration a priority. Set a goal to drink at least 2 liters, about 68 Oz, of water a day. A good strategy is to place a bottle next to your bed and drink a full glass while still lying down before you get up. The third is a dietary review without needing radicalism. Swap fried foods for baked or boiled preparations in most meals. Reduce processed meats. Increase dark leafy greens like kale, spinach, and broccoli, which are rich in natural nitrates that favor nitric oxide production. Include nuts, extra virgin olive oil, and fish like salmon and sardines. And include 3 specific fruits that deserve highlight: pomegranate, watermelon, and passion fruit. Watermelon is rich in citrulline, an amino acid the body converts into arginine and then into nitric oxide. It has a real vasodilating effect, proven by research, and many people don't know this. The fourth piece of the protocol is sleep quality. Create a routine. Try to go to sleep and wake up at the same times every day. Avoid screens for at least 30 minutes before bed. Keep the room dark and cool. If you have symptoms of sleep apnea, such as intense snoring, pauses in breathing during the night, waking up with a headache, or excessive daytime sleepiness, investigate this with a doctor. Untreated apnea is devastating for testosterone and circulation. The fifth is active stress management. It doesn't have to be meditation if you don't like it. It can be prayer, fishing, gardening, a walk in the park, or listening to music you enjoy. What matters is having daily time dedicated to slowing down the nervous system, reducing cortisol, and creating a more favorable internal state. And the sixth piece is strategic supplementation with the natural oil I mentioned, which within this set of cares acts as an accelerator. It enhances the effect of all the other changes, supporting circulation from the inside while habits work from the outside. It is not a substitute for anything. It is the complement that completes the cycle. If you want to know the details of the natural supplement based on these functional oils that is part of the protocol I've developed over the years, the link with all the information is in the first pinned comment below. There you can find the full composition, how to use it, and you can calmly evaluate if it makes sense for your reality. No pressure, just quality information for you to make the best decision about your own body. There is an aspect of male health that is rarely discussed openly, but that I consider fundamental: the impact of sexual problems on relationships. When a man starts having erectile difficulties, the natural tendency is to withdraw. He avoids intimacy without explaining why. The partner, without understanding what is happening, may interpret this as rejection. And the distance grows in a way that can be very difficult to reverse. I always encourage my patients to have an honest conversation with their partner. It doesn't have to be a grand declaration. It can be simple. I'm going through a phase where my body isn't responding like before. I'm seeking care for it, but I need you to know it's not about you. This conversation has the power to transform the problem from something that divides the couple into something that unites them. Because when the partner understands, she can be an ally in the process, and her emotional support makes a difference that no supplement or medication can replicate. I also want to tell you about the exams I consider essential for men over 60, especially for those presenting these symptoms: a complete hormonal profile with total and free testosterone, LH, FSH, prolactin, and estradiol shows the hormonal picture and allows for identifying deficiencies that directly impact sexual function. A lipid profile with total cholesterol, LDL, HDL, and triglycerides, because dyslipidemia is one of the main causes of vascular compromise. Blood glucose and A1C, since diabetes and prediabetes cause neuropathy and vasculopathy that affect erections. PSA for prostate screening, blood pressure evaluation, and an EKG as an annual cardiovascular baseline. And levels of vitamin D and zinc, whose deficiency is associated with low testosterone and immune compromise. If you don't know when the last time you had these exams was, this might be the moment to schedule an appointment. Health doesn't wait. The effect of the oil is not immediate like that of a medication. It takes weeks of consistent use for the organism to accumulate the compounds in sufficient concentrations to produce perceptible changes. But when those changes happen, they are sustained because they are based on real improvements in the body's physiology, not on artificial and temporary stimuli. Men who expect results in the first week get frustrated. Men who commit to 2 or 3 months of consistent use, combined with lifestyle changes, are the ones who return to the office with stories like Roberto's and Marcos's. It is a medium-term investment, but it is an investment that gives back something no amount of money can buy: the feeling of truly being alive inside your own body. We are reaching the end of this video, and I want to tell you something with all the sincerity I have. I care about every man who comes to this channel, about every man who is at home, sometimes with shame, sometimes with fear, looking for answers he hasn't found elsewhere. You deserve respect. You deserve real information. And you deserve a life with quality, with health, with intimacy, with energy, regardless of your age. Aging with vitality is not a privilege of the few. It is the result of consistent choices, of continuous care, and of being willing to look at your own body without shame and without giving up. The protocol I shared today, daily movement, hydration, an anti inflammatory diet, stress management, quality sleep, and strategic supplementation, is not complicated. It doesn't require extreme sacrifice, it requires consistency. And consistency starts with a decision made today. If you want to take an extra step, the link to learn more about the natural supplement that is part of the protocol I've developed and have been recommending to my patients is in the first pinned comment below. It's worth taking a look, understanding the ingredients, and seeing if it makes sense for you. And if this video helped you, gave you an insight, or made you see something differently, give it a like. It seems small, but it makes a huge difference so that more men can find this content. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I love knowing where the people who follow this channel are from. And if you aren't subscribed yet, subscribe now and hit the notification bell because every week I bring new content on male health, circulation, prostate, energy, and vitality without sensationalism, without false promises, just real information with respect and care. Take care of yourself. You deserve it. You